Ultimately, an exegetical paper is research on a passage of scripture, which in our case would come from the book of Acts. We begin with topic selection, which is perhaps the most interesting and most difficult part of the research because it sets the course of everything that we'll do from this point on. You want to bring your attention to a passage, not a very long passage that you cannot cover in one single paper, but not very short either, or not significant enough where you cannot find enough material for your paper. For example, prayer in Acts is a great topic, but prayer is present in every chapter of Acts. And 28 chapters is a little bit too long to exegete in a short paper like the one required in our class on Acts. Another good example is the subject of power. Power is also present everywhere in the book of Acts, but we can focus in the use of the word power or the use of the subject of power in Acts chapter 2 alone. Or if you want to focus on a particular passage instead of the use of the word, we'll choose Acts 1 and 8 with the scripture and promise by Jesus that you'll receive power. The second part of our exegetical study will focus on the bibliography. Bibliography is needed because we, as students of the Bible, do not know everything about the given passage subject in our paper, and we will need to bring some knowledge from extra resources. There are four required resources in an exegetical paper of this size. First of all, we need several current periodical articles. Our periodicals articles could come from printed periodicals, they could come from the database. You don't need too many of them, and not all your resources should be periodicals, but you need just enough to prove your point in the paper. Secondly, you need a couple of monographs on Acts. A monograph is a single volume, a work dedicated on a book of the Bible or other subject, in our case on the book of Acts. My favorite one on Acts is our church God theologian and my professor from the seminary, French Erickton, who has developed a wonderful study on the book of Acts in one volume, and I often use it and recommend to my students. Then you need a couple of commentaries. At this point, we will exclude Sunday school curriculum, study Bibles, one volume commentaries like Matthew Henry, or popular commentary series like the Pulpit Commentary. What is needed is not a commentary that reiterates the Bible in more simple words or as a story, but a serious scholarly work that points you to the heart and the essence of the biblical text. And finally, a scholarly Greek dictionary, also called lexicon, is needed here that would help you research your selected passage exegetically in order to understand how its keywords are used in the original language and context. I recommend several options, and please note single volumes like Vines or Strongs are not going to be of much help here. They do give you some word study, but they're not deep enough and scholarly enough for an exegetical paper. One single volume that is often used and was used in my education is Tyer's Lexicon of the Greek Language. It's a quick reference where you can find essential information about the history and etymology of the word. Secondly, I recommend Wiest. Now, Ken Wiest was a scholar over 100 years ago who translated through the Bible and produced a literal translation of the New Testament that, in my opinion, is better than the much more popular Young's literal translation of the Bible. Besides his translation, Wiest produced a three-volume set of word study virtually of every word in the New Testament. And finally, at this level of exegetical research, I also recommend Kitto, which is a larger volume set of Greek word studies, very thorough, very technical, not that easy to use, but still providing much more information than anything that's out there. Once your topic selection is completed and you have found enough materials and resources for the bibliography to produce a scholarly exegetical paper, it is time for your assimilated research, which could be viewed as annotated bibliography. This is an assignment where we quote word for word or rewrite in our own words key ideas from the resources that we have selected in the bibliography. For example, if my topic was the use of the word power in Acts chapter 2, my first periodical would show the first instance of the use of the word and how it relates to the rest of the text and if it's used again in the same passage. My second periodical ultimately will show the connection between wind and fire in chapter 2 as they explain the power that's given to the disciples. My last periodical, in this case with my topic of research, will attempt to provide the correlation between power and tongues that are both present in Acts chapter 2. Continuing with my assimilated research or annotated bibliography, I'll derive to my monograph from Arrington, which will show that in Acts chapter 2 and beyond, the power was evident in the community of believers, but past certain time, past chapter 5 and into chapter 6, and with the persecution in chapter 7 of Acts, the community of early believers was spread because of persecution, and this also spread the power of God in different ethnic and cultural communities outside of Israel. Continuing, the use of my Greek lexicon will now explain keywords of power like dunamis and exousia used in Acts and specifically in Acts chapter 2. I'll continue with deeper exegetical study to explain how the use of dunamis in chapter 2 differs by the use of any other words or even of the word dunamis in the rest of the book of Acts and possibly all writings by Luke, which include Acts and the Gospel. So, with these first three assignments completed toward the completion of our exegetical paper, we have reached the point of research where we are now ready to write the sentence outline, which will be our assignment in the next session 6 of the class.